All right, everybody, welcome back to another Ask a Dev Unreal Engine tutorial. We are continuing our control rig series talking about the backwards solve. My name is Kevin. We have a bunch to do today, although I think if you've made it this far, this is going to seem like a walk in the park compared to everything else. As always, if you like what we're doing in the channel, there's all the usual support stuff. We have the tips, we have the Patreon, we have the community, the Discord. If you're an expert in your field, hop in, help answer questions, and spreading the word. It's always appreciated. So before we just hop into Unreal though, let's talk about, or at least recap, the whole point of the backwards solve. The backwards solve is there so that when you have an existing animation and you want to update, edit, work with it, you need a way to align your animation controls, your control rig, to the existing animation. So what we do is we take the animation, we look at all the joints in the animation, the bones, and we align our FK controls. And we go through a process that is typically called baking in the animation world, which is on the first frame, you go to the first frame, you align all your controls to your joints, set a keyframe. Go to the next frame, align all your controls to the joints, set a keyframe. And you do that for every frame. So basically what we're doing is we're doing the reverse of what we have been doing, which has been, we have our animation controls that are driving the bones. Now we're going to do the reverse, which is why it's called a backwards solve, where we're going to use the bones to drive the animation controls. So let's hop into Unreal and I'll show you our goal for today. So our goal for today is to make it so that this walk has our animation control rig on top of it, so we can edit it. We want to bake this walk onto our animation controls. To do that, we need to use the backward solve. Now, and I can show you, because usually if you choose edit and sequencer bake to control rig, you'll notice there's only one control rig here that's available. Even though if we look at our folder where we've been working right now, I have a bajillion control rigs for all the different lessons we've done. The primary one we're going to be working with today is this CR biped anim. So let's talk about what this is. This is basically, this rig is not done, but it is done enough that we can attempt the backward solve. It is a culmination of all the stuff we've done so far, the forward kinematics stuff, it's the advanced leg 3, it's all that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a backward solve for this control rig. But before we do that, I don't want to lose my work, so I'm actually going to save this off as a different name. So let's do that. Okay, so we're going to call this control rig biped anim backward solve. That way we can pass that on to our Patreon group. All right, now, as I mentioned previously, we didn't even see the option to use our biped anim backward solve in the list. Okay, so if we come up here and we just right click, we're going to actually add in a backward solve. All right, and in our backward solve, we're going to start, let's try to start with the simplest thing. The general idea is we want to align all of our FK controls to our joints, which is the exact opposite of what we're doing down here in our forward solve. So for example, here's a forward leg. This is our bones. Here's our FK solve. All right, here we go. So I'm going to take this item array, and up here in our backward solve, this item array, you can see over here on the right, it's crazy. It's basically every spine FK IK control we have, excluding the legs. So if all we do in here is we go through a for each loop, for, if I can spell it, for each on these, what I want to do is I want to take, and I'm going to take the name, and if we followed a good naming convention, if we want to find the joint for each of these FK controls, what we can do is we can just replace underbar FK underbar control with nothing. So let's do that. Let's replace underbar FK underbar control with none. And this should theoretically be the name of a joint. So if the item exists, then what we want to do, here's the name, and this is a joint or a bone. Okay, if that's true, I just pressed, left clicked and pressed B to get up my branch. So if that's true, then all I want to do is I want to set, let's make this a little bit easier for you guys to read. Okay, I want to set the transform of the control to be where this joint is. Okay, so let's get the transform, and this is going to be of a bone that is this name, and we are going to take this element and we are going to set the transform. So if that's true, it exists. The item is the item and the value is going to be our value, and we can keep all the propagate, etc. So in its simplest form, this backward solve is going to take all of our FK controls. It is going to align them to the joints where they are at that current frame. So let's compile and save this. And let's see if we go back to our forward walk, if it shows up. It does. So now, just by simply adding in the backward solve, we now have our control rig as an option that we can bake to for this skeleton. So should we try it and see how it works? I say we let it ride, see what happens. We've saved everything. Yep, okay, cool. So let's see what happens. So we're going to bake this. And this pops up our usual window. Let's bake this to control rig. And then this should be at the origin. So let's go to the origin, and I'm going to temporarily just delete a bunch of this stuff. And let's see what this looks like. If we press play, oh, pretty cool. Oh, pretty cool. Okay, so it's actually working, but we only did the FK joints. And remember, even if we turn off our IK legs, those aren't going to work because we didn't actually align the controls, because our control list here, this item array, does not include the FK legs. We excluded those, and the reason we did that was because we were doing all this fancy stuff down here with the eggs, with the legs, not eggs. All right, so but you can see just by looking at this, if we turn on looping, that looks pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's update this. I'm actually gonna restart real quick because I want to bring up an anim stage that's a little bit easier to edit. So we'll bring that up. Actually, no, I don't even think we have to do that. I believe I already have one. So let's close the sequencer and let's go ahead and grab our maps under tutorial. We'll bring up an anim stage, and I am not going to save. Okay, so we have our anim stage. Now we can do the same thing again. We could basically bake this to the control rig, like so. And we do need to actually click the bake button here, and we're back to where we were. Okay, so characters walking, that's great. So all we have to deal with is the legs. Now, one of the reasons why I mentioned that this backward solve is probably gonna seem like a walk in the park for you all if you've made it this far, is because we did so much work to do all of our FK-IK snapping and the advanced legs. So if you think about it, what you could do is you could line up your FK controls for the legs and then just simply do an IK snap to your FK controls. We've already done all that work. So logically that should work. I've never tried it, but let's give it a try and see how that goes. So first things first, we do need our legs. So here's our legs. And these are, for example, let's take these are our bones. These are our left leg bones. So we can come up here to our backward solve. And what we'll do is on complete, let's do the legs separately because we have so much extra work done with those. And we can do this as a sequence actually. So let's take this and move this up. And I'm gonna hold S and left click. That's going to create a sequence for me. And so the first thing we're doing is everything else. And then we're going to do this exact same thing, but for the legs. Okay. And so let's just take this and copy it. We could probably make a cool function out of this. But anyways, so this is going to do our legs. That's going to do our left leg at least. And then what we want to do at the end is we want to do a snap. So where is our snap code? If we look at our advanced leg, this is the FK solve. And at the end of the FK solve, we are aligning our IK to our FK. So let's just redo this work. This is going to be awesome if this works. And if it doesn't, we will adjust. Okay, so this is going to line up all of our FK controls. And then at the very end, after this is complete, and just to show you where we are in context, this is, if we comment this, everything but the leg. Obviously, I would label this much better, but in general, this is just for tutorial purposes, and this is going to be our left leg, as an example. Okay, so now that we have that, let's compile it, make sure everything compiles and saves, and let's see if we can do this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this from my sequence, get rid of my sequencer entirely. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to choose edit in sequencer, bake to control rig. That's going to pop up my window, and I'm going to bake this to control rig. All right, let's see what happened. Oh my goodness, that's pretty cool. So our left leg is doing something. It's doing something. All right, we got one more to do. Let's just go ahead and do the right leg so you can see how straightforward this is. So same thing, let's make some room here. Actually, let's just move all of this stuff up. And we're basically going to repeat this, except we are going to be using all of our right leg stuff. Now, what I want to clarify or be clear on is if this doesn't work, it is probably not a case that the backward solve is not working. It's probably there's something weird about our IK snapping, for example. So let's get the bones for our right leg. So let's copy those, and we're going to feed those in here. And if we double check, we can see these are actually those are controls. Yeah, okay, so these are the controls for our right leg. Are these our controls for? Oh, interesting. Actually, we need the controls for the left leg. We messed that up. These are the controls. This is going to be the right leg. Let's go back and get the controls. Make sure we have everything correct. All right, so let's go back and get the controls for the left leg. And the controls are here. Okay. Okay, so we're starting with the controls on the left leg. Yep. And then these are the controls for the right leg. Yes, they are. Now we need the right leg snapping. The reason I'm just copying this is because I want, just in case I didn't remember whether or not it was flip axis, etc. I just want to be clean about this. I'll delete this, paste this in. This is going to happen when we're complete. Okay, now compile and save everything. And we are going to do this one more time. I'm going to delete everything. In here, we'll go back to our walk. I'm going to choose edit in sequencer. Let's just bake to control rig so we know we're starting from scratch. Go ahead and click on bake and let's see how it looks. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. There's a couple bits about it that are a little bit rigid. Okay, and there are things to consider. So, for example, if we take a look at this, we are just currently blindly our center of gravity is probably not being aligned to anything right now, and we probably need to handle that as a special case because we have not actually down here we can see that we have our pelvis is our center of gravity control. So what we would do is let's just take this, and I'm pretty sure what let's see here, we've got, do we have the, I want to just check our list and make sure we don't have a center of gravity in here. We do not. Okay, we do have a pelvis control though. So let's just paste this up in here. And what we're going to do, and this is one of those one-off cases because the center of gravity control does not match the same name as the pelvis. So we're actually going to have to do the work here. So let's add a pin. Let's just shift these down. I'm control dragging these down to shift them. And then what we'll do up here is we are going to get the bone for the pelvis, like we're doing here. And we're going to set the transform for the cog. So this is all already done for us. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and feed that in. Now, we don't want to get the initial though. Right now we're getting the initial because I actually copied this from the initialize, not from the actual. Here is where we were doing the work. We're flipping this. Here we're getting, this is the forward solve. To be clear where we are, we're in the forward solve. This is getting the cog control, and this is aligning the bone. That we want to do the opposite. So if we flip this, if we come up here, we get the pelvis bone, and we're going to align our cog to the pelvis. Now, what else are we doing down here as a one-off? This list is all of our lists. Okay, great. So that should be what we need in order to get our pelvis working as well. So let's compile and save that and see what that looks like. So we'll just delete everything in here. We'll come back to our walk forward. We'll edit in sequencer. We will bake to our anim backward solve again and see what we look like. Okay, obviously we have a problem. And what is going on? There's a couple of things that are potentially going on here. You'll notice that our pelvis is moving correctly, but notice that our root is not, and basically our IK joints are moving in space. So what we're kind of dealing with is we're missing a couple of things. We need to decide whether or not our layout control is going to travel with this. So for example, if we were to copy this here and go ahead and let's see if we can add in our layout control to the mix. So we're going to take our root bone and we're going to use that to set our layout. And we want to do this first. And the reason we want to do this first is because it's sort of a top-down hierarchy thing. So our layout's going to move, and then our cog, or center of gravity, is going to move after it. So let's see if this makes this better. The other thing that we may need to consider is, rather than just blindly taking our global positions and using those, let's compile and save this. We may also need to consider using a project to parent for all of our FK alignment, but let's just see how this goes. So we'll bake this back to our anim solve. Go ahead and bake that, and let's see where we are. Okay, that's better. Now let's just see what this looks like though. If we look at, we should have FK and IK at this point. Let's see here. On our layout node, you'll notice that we have our IK enables. These are all checked to bake to on. Let's go ahead and turn these. I'm going to delete all these keys. I'm going to uncheck them. And let's take a look at what our FK solve looks like. It actually looks pretty good. Actually, that's pretty sweet. So overall, the goal here is to take all of your controls, whatever the rig you're building is, and align it to your bones. That way you can then use that information to edit animations and so on. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is, as I had mentioned, right now we're just blindly getting the bone transform. And what we may want to do instead is we may want to just go ahead and do a project to parent. Let's project to new parent. And let's see, the child in this case is going to be the control, and the new parent in this case is going to be this bone. So new parent bone, new parent bone. We'll just make a quick switch for everything but the leg. Let's just try that. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is what, if you take a look at the default control rig, they tend to use this project to parent, which is probably going to take into account whether or not the layout control is moving or not. So let's just try this and see what happens. We'll compile and save this. So this is going to do everything but our leg. And if we come back to our setup and then we rebake this out to our control rig, see if we broke anything. No, looks good. So even the project to parent works, and what might be cool is to see what happens if we do that same thing, the same exact idea for our legs. So here's let's just compare left leg versus right leg if we do this. So rather than getting this, what we'll do is we'll take this control and we will do we'll connect in our bone. We'll project that to the parent. We'll go like so, and we should have all that. Okay, so this is our left leg. So our left leg now uses project apparent. Our right leg is standard, or just by whatever the default was. So let's just go ahead and bake that out and compare them. We'll bake this to control rig and see what we get. I'm pretty certain our FK-IK snapping is, our actual IK snapping is not behaving the way we would want it to, obviously. But let's take a look at what this looks like in FK space, because that's the one that we worked with. Where is this? Here we go. Here's our layout control. Just grab all these keys. I'm going to delete those and uncheck. So using the project apparent is fine. It doesn't change it, and probably what we have is we probably have an issue in our snapping. So when we come in and we do our advanced align, there's a lot going on in here. So we're getting all the bones, we're doing our basic IK, we're setting our pole vector positions, and our knee offsets. And our knee offsets is getting set to the global position of the FK knee offset. And I don't know if we're setting our FK knee offset. So that might be something that we need to double check to make sure that we're setting. So our knees, actually, let's take a look and see if we can see, is our FK knee offset doing weird things? Oh yeah, look at this. So our knee offsets are messed up. So really what it is at this point is it's a matter of, for your control rig, depending on how you've set it up, going back and making sure all this stuff is getting aligned properly in each of the stages. So I also do want to point out, as we backed out of there, we do actually have, we are doing extra work right now. After our for each loop, we're actually setting control, then we're doing our snap. We don't need to do this every time. We don't want to do this every time. We want to do this when our for loop is complete instead. So if I definitely want to disconnect this. This actually isn't going to help our problem as far as like our legs being messed up, but I did want to connect that in, partially because I also wanted to see if, just as a quick thing, if we did align that knee offset, which is FK knee offset. Let's get that and just try to plug it in real quick to see if we get a better result. It's kind of bugging me a little bit. So let's get, we're going to have to make a special case for this. This is the control we want. So the joint that we're going to use in this case is our calf. So let's just take the calf left. And then let's make a name. I'm going to make a name out of this real quick. So let's take the name of calf. Let's take calf underscore left, and we're going to do none and none. That way it's just the calf. And then the control is going to be called that FK calf knee offset. Get. All right, just so that I know I have this here, and we are going to take this and we are going to append, which is concatenating in this world, and then is going to be our underscore FK underscore knee underscore offset. So this is going to be the transform that we're setting. So let's set the transform. And we're going to set the item as a control, and this is the name of it. And we're going to get the transform of our bone. Probably want to do the project to new parent, but let's just see what happens. This is the value. This is the calf. Okay, translation, rotation, and then plug this in. Let's see if our left leg looks better. Bake that out. I think that is a little better. I think that looks better. Let's see if our what it looks like with our left leg in FK mode. Because if we messed up the location of that calf offset, our leg is going to be messed up as it is. So it's definitely messed up. Let's try project a parent on that. So we'll project a parent. And in this case, what we're going to be using is the control. Yes, so this is going to be a control, and it's going to be our knee offset, and the new parent is going to be the calf left, which is a bone and a bone. And we're going to get the transform on that. We don't want any of that. That's good. That should do it. The other option is, remember, our knee offsets may be one of those ones that we zero out because of the way we set that up. So let's just try 2 more things and see how we do with this, and then we'll call this a wrap. So let's go back here, we compile and save this, rerun this one more time, and this is basically what you all are going to be doing in your own, just figuring out how your rig is set up. Let's switch this to FK on the left leg. Nope, that's not it. So let's try one more where what we do is effectively zero that out. So we are going to not project our parent. We're going to keep our knee offset. That's fine. I'm not even going to do this. I'm going to make a transform. And I'm going to change this to be local space. And I'm going to basically set this to 0. The reason I'm doing that is because our offset is actually parented in. So we should be all right. Let's see if we can get that. This is empty. One more bake. Backward solve. Okay. There's definitely some popping that's happening there on our knees, but I want to see what our left leg looks like in IK. I'm sorry, in FK. All right, that's much better. That's what we wanted. Okay, so now we have our left FK leg looking pretty good. Now, don't get lost in this. I want to point out something that's important. If we take a look at this, there's something weird that's going on, and it could be our snap, it could be a couple other things. But if you look at this, notice how the foot is doing this weird kind of settle down. Always take the time and look at your source. If you look at this, look at what's going on with this character's foot. This foot is doing some weird things. It's like sinking down closer to the floor. It never goes flat. The left foot it has a heel plant. So there's some room. It's possible that our FK-IK snapping for our legs might be slightly off, but there's also some weird things that are going on with our animation that we're starting from. So overall, don't get lost in this. Okay, the backward solve is a fairly basic concept, right? We have our joints. They are animated, come in as an animation sequence. We want to edit those. We're going to take our controls, we're going to line them up to the joints frame by frame and set a key. And what that does is that gives us the ability to edit the animations. The way you decide to do your backward solve is going to be custom. Maybe you want your You want a backward solve that always sets your feet to be FK, or you always want it to set it to be IK. These are all things that you can explore and do based on what your individual needs are. So in general, the backward solve is probably a pretty straightforward walk in the park because of everything you've done to this point. Now, the reason I say its primary purpose is for basically baking out animation and editing is because I'm leaving myself some wiggle room. There's a lot of new stuff in the 5.41 stuff. For example, it is possible that the backward solve might be used in the layered control rig. I don't think so, but I want to give myself a little bit of wiggle room there just in case. Again, don't overcomplicate this. The backward solve is pretty straightforward. Align your animation controls to your joints wherever you want to. You can use global space, you can use project a new parent, whatever works and is best. Do keep in mind your order matters. If you move your feet and then you do the layout control, you're going to get all of your animations could be out of sync. So you need to do kind of top down. What are you moving first? Unless you're accounting for it in your solve. So as always, thanks for being the best part of this adventure, our community. I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out the live section. We try to do regular live Unreal Engine tutorials, so a lot of our content is there. My name's Kevin. I hope to see you in an upcoming live stream. Take it easy.